Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Vibes. And I'd like to welcome here Cathy Duvert, who is an author and a blogger. And you have a book. Is it coming out or is it already out?
It's already out.
Oh,
It's already
awesome.
out.
It's called The Box.
Mhm.
All right. And your blog is Cathy's Cross.
CATHY'S CROSS.
Cathy, tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure. Hi, thank you so much for having me here in the first place, Kyle. I appreciate that. My name is Cathelina Duvert. People call me Cathy for short. That's fine. I am the author of my debut novel, The Box, which is a novel about a young woman who's suffering with depression, and she has to come to terms with it when she finds a note written by her late mother. And she has to go through an emotional journey in order to understand more about her mother and herself in order to get through depression. And I started writing this novel about 25 years ago when I was suffering with depression and I didn't know what I was dealing with. It was before I sought therapy. And in an effort to understand what I was going through, or just like expel what I was going through written form, I started writing my novel about this young woman. And when I was diagnosed with depression, I knew exactly what my main character had. And so I just took the story from there.
Did you get a good idea of where your depression was coming from?
Yes, I know exactly where it came from. And this is through years of therapy that I finally realized what the source was. When I was 11 years old, I was we were there was a group of us kids playing a hide and seek game at nighttime, and I got caught in the bushes with this boy who touched me inappropriately, and it left me feeling like I was stupid, like shameful, like how did I not see this coming, and the fact that I never talked about it again, it just festered inside of me. And for years, I didn't even remember, I didn't even link the two, like how I was feeling and what happened at that time. I didn't even link the two until only about 5 years ago.
So did you block it out for a long time?
So I didn't block it out. I remembered that it happened. I just never quite talked about it. And I guess I'm not gonna say that I blocked it out in like the traditional sense, but it's not something that was on the forefront of my mind. And it's funny because a few years ago, I went into my storage unit to find something, and then I came across all these poems and stories that I had written about that particular night. And I I barely remembered writing those words, but I remember that night very specifically. So it was something that it was always in the like sort of like in the back burner, but it was something that sort of informed my decisions and informed the way that I thought about myself. So yeah, I didn't completely block it out, but it wasn't something that I always thought about either.
The thing is not to give that person that power of robbing you of
Mhm.
your joy.
I
Because
know.
I had something that happened to me as a child, and it was a family member, someone I trusted, and I don't know. I feel like I blocked it out, but every once in a while I sort of think about it, and then when I realize, ooh, this was a little bit more than what I remember,
Hmm.
and then I don't know, it ruined relationship after relationship with me. Did you
Yeah.
have a problem with that?
Oh yeah, I never quite understood why I had such a problematic relationship with boys and men. And even when I was like in high school, it was weird. I always looked at them as looked at guys, at boys as the enemy, yet I craved relationships with them. And even when I was in a relationship and I didn't know how to be myself in a relationship, and in the first relationship that I ever had, he ended up taking advantage of me for the entire time. He was, manipulative, gaslighting me, just cheating on me, and I allowed it all to happen. So and a part of me knew that something was not quite right with him, but at the same time, I just needed to be with him. And yeah, years of therapy. Yeah,
And
yeah,
until you get that empowerment, it seems like that low self-esteem, you just will pick the wrong person every
yeah,
time.
yeah. And it's funny because I after that incident, I didn't trust men and boys, and most of all, I didn't trust myself to make those decisions to be with them, you know? And it
Mm,
seemed like I consistently chose the wrong people. I consistently chose people who took advantage of me. And even though I told myself I learned my lesson and I'm not going to get into this again, something else, I would choose another person who I thought was really, really great, and then I would learn things about him. And it's just an ongoing cycle. I have to just be more careful.
I'm going to ask you something. If you feel uncomfortable answering the question, I totally understand.
Mhm,
But there's being a guy, there's certain things that are intimate between two people that most men enjoy.
mhm,
And I think because of what I went through, even to this day, I don't really enjoy it. Do you have
mhm.
problems with that?
Um, I think so. I think in a way it actually it's funny because I was just talking to somebody earlier today about how um what's the best way I could say this? I feel like being intimate with a man was always hard for me, to the point where I sort of always became I was always under the influence of alcohol in order to be intimate with someone. And when and I and so and to be social as well, but I realized that once I took the alcohol away, I had to confront the insecurities that I had about being with men. And yeah, it really informed that. And I can't think of any other reason other than what had happened and how insecure that I felt with myself. And because when it happened all those years ago, I didn't blame him. I blamed myself for allowing it to happen. And so anytime when I decided to date someone or and then it didn't work out, or I slept with someone, it didn't work out, it always went back to me and how I react or how I am in a relationship. So and then in my insecurities in being intimate with somebody. Yeah, absolutely.
It's strange. Why do we blame ourselves?
I think it's easier to blame ourselves because at the end of the day, we have to live with ourselves and our memories of it, right? So there's only so much blaming of the other person that we can do that will make us feel better. So when that happened that night, it was a group of kids who were together, and when he touched me inappropriately and he said a few words that he's like, "Don't worry, I won't tell nobody." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I remember we were a group of kids, and I fought for myself, and I started punching him because at the time when he said that we were alone, but then when we all got together, I was punching him, and everybody was like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And I remember sticking up for myself, being angry with that, and then he left, and I never saw him again. But I had to live with the memory of that. So it was easier to keep blaming myself for that than him. But I didn't know who he was. He was just a random boy we just happened to be playing around with, you know?
Mm. It's
Yeah.
also we tend to go to drugs and alcohol to, I guess, to deal with it, drown it out, forget about
Mhm.
it. And like you, once I finally got past the alcohol and I was a bad drug addict, I started to get that confidence, and it took me a long time, but I finally have a healthy relationship now.
Mhm.
And of course, I still have a few things that I have to work through, but for the most part, this is the best relationship I ever had, and I'm sober.
Oh, congratulations. That's wonderful news. That's great.
Mm. What was
Yeah.
what was that aha moment for you when you finally said, "Hey, enough of the alcohol"?
Um, that's a good question. There was one night, oh yes, I'm going to tell you exactly when. There was one night when I was dating somebody, we were off and on, but we had planned to meet at a restaurant, and we had a few drinks and we ended up at his place. And I remember I I fell asleep and I woke up the next morning and he told me all about this great night that we had and all the stuff that we did. And I did not remember a single thing. And I almost felt robbed of the experience. I almost felt like, well, he could have taken advantage of me. Maybe he did. I don't know what happened. Literally had absolutely no memory. The last memory I had was that we went into his place. I fell asleep on the bed, and that's it. And after that moment, I was just like, Cathy, enough. You can't keep doing this to yourself because anything could have happened. It's such a dangerous situation. Anything could have. I don't know what happened that night, but apparently, according to him, we shared something, and yeah, that was my aha moment. I just told myself that was the last time I did that on a date with somebody. I was just like, I can't keep doing that to myself.
And I'm assuming that you felt a need to help other people. Is that why you started blogging?
I did. The first blog that I had, I started writing about the fact that I was 40 years old and not yet married, not no with no prospects. And it was really it's supposed to be a funny blog. And it was entertaining. But while I was writing it, I had to like think about the reasons why am I still single and why doesn't anyone want to pursue a relationship with me? And then after and then I got married and I started thinking about other things in terms of my marriage and how I was dealing inside of that. And that's when I came up with Cathy's Cross and I subtitled it A Depressive's Positive Perspective. And what I realized in the past few years, I've been doing a number of things that have helped me overcome the daily depression that I had, right? I started meditating, I started listening to positive affirmations, and saying positive affirmations, and I started exercising on a regular basis. And all of these things really helped me feel better about myself. It helped me um, combat these feelings of depression. And I felt like, oh my gosh, I have something here. So you're right. I felt like I wanted to share that. And so when I started writing Cathy's Cross, I wanted to share all the things that I did in order to combat depression. And I realized that, oh, well, I did a lot of things. I did it on a daily basis. And this might be a lot for other people, but I always prefaced it with, well, see, try one or two of these things to see how it works for you. And I'm such a huge believer in diving into your art, your creativity in order to combat depression. And that's what I did. And that's how I ended up writing my novel, right? So I started my novel 25 years ago. In an effort to understand what I was dealing with depression. And once I did, I dived into that book and I fell in love with the book and I wrote it and I managed to self-publish it. And I feel like I didn't use like the reason why I became depressed. I didn't use that for my main character. She has a whole nother set of issues, but I was still able to use the feelings that I had and give it to my main character. And in doing so, it brought me so much joy to write. So I'm such a strong believer, firm believer in dive into that thing that you feel is your creative strength and see where it takes you. I just believe in that so much.
All right. So I know we want people to buy the book. So we don't want to
Yes.
give too much away, but give just enough to entice people to say, hey, I want to go read that book.
Okay. So my novel, The Box, is about Mia Hill, who is stuck in a sort of dead-end relationship with her boyfriend. She doesn't get along with her sister, and her father is sort of estranged from her after her mother has passed away. And one day she discovers a note from her mother, and her mother had written her a note saying something like, I'm sorry for the way that I treated you. If you find my box, you'll understand why. And this was behind a portrait that her mother had given her. She learns that the portrait is painted by this beautiful painter that she falls in love with, and so sort of takes her away from her current, failed relationship. And it has some steamy scenes in there, some really good scenes, and she has a best friend who is, I think, is the comic relief. And I think it's a great book because it dives into the importance of depression and how different people experience it all at the same time while she's discovering her sexuality and she's discovering the type of person she is. And and it has a happy ending, so it's a good book.
Well, there's other folks out there who are thinking about publishing their own books, and I've weighed in with other people the pros and cons of self-publishing. But can you go through the steps of what you did to get that book out there?
Sure. So I know that a lot of self-published books, people look at self-published books as, well, if it wasn't good enough for the publishing industry, then how is it something that I would be interested in reading? And what I did was, in order to make sure that it was the best book that it could be, that it was high caliber, I had an editor look at it like years ago, and then when I revised it about 5 maybe 8 years ago, I had another editor look at it. And then when I revised it last year, I had another editor look at it. So I had three different set of eyes on it, professional people looking at it. I revised it according to them. I let friends and family read it so they can tell me what they felt worked or did not work. And once I was really ready to get it out there, I joined an organization called the Women's Fiction Writers Association. And through that, I was able to get a publishing coach who sort of coached me through the steps of, okay, now that you finished it, this is what you do. You upload it to I forget which website it was, Reedsy, no, not Reedsy. I forget which website it is, but she told me where to go to upload it so I can get people to review it. She told me how to go about getting it formatted, which is Reedsy. She told me how to upload it to Amazon. I mean, I read all this stuff too, but she was there guiding me through all of it. So I really believe that if it wasn't for her, I would not have published the novel when I did. I sought professional help in order to get this published. And I went through all the steps. I made sure that it was well written. I had several people look at the back cover copy, and I just took all the steps little by little. I didn't rush through the process, and yeah, that's what I did.
Do they have a
And
website?
do I have a website?
No, do the organization that you got all the help, do they have a website?
Yeah, it's WFWA.org, I believe, Women's Fiction Writers Association. And I found them just in the nick of time, really. It's a group of women who just help each other. They provide educational resources. They have conferences. We have Zoom calls where we're all writing together. It's just such a great source of support for women writers, and not only for women writers, but anyone who's writing women's fiction. So there are men involved in the group as well. So yeah,
Are you working on another one?
I am working on another one. I'm working on two literary projects, actually. One of them is my my blog, Cathy's Cross. I decided to take the blog post from it and put it into like sort of a memoir slash um journal. So after each post, I'm going to have a section where somebody can write their own thoughts about it, or maybe something that they've gone through that was similar to that situation. And I'm going to have, inspiring quotes and things that I've taken from my website. And also another novel that I'm working on about a pair of twin sisters, identical twin Haitian American sisters who are dealing with their mother who's ill with dementia and in an effort to find their father.
Well, I'm assuming you have a website.
You know what? I am working on a website. I
You're
don't
working
have
on it.
one yet. Yes, yes. Yes, I bought the domain name CathelinaDuvert.com. I bought that domain name, but I have somebody who's putting the site together for me. So it's taken me a while to get that. But I am heavily on Instagram with my tag name Cathelina Duvert. And I'm
And
on LinkedIn as well.
where can people read the blog?
So at this time, because I've decided to make it into a book, I
Hmm.
this literally this week I took it down.
Oh
So they
no.
can't, I know they can't read my blog at this time, but because I've decided to put it all together in a book and I don't, I just felt like it would be better if I didn't have people have access to it if I'm going to put it together in a book. But yeah.
Seems like you could probably make a daily affirmation type book as well.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I really should think about that. Yeah, you're right. That's a really
Okay.
good idea. I'm going to start thinking about that. I also started thinking about maybe like my word of the day or my phrase of the day on Instagram or something like that.
Hey, that would be an awesome idea. But if you
Yeah,
get rich off of it, you got to throw a little bit my way because I gave you
I
the
will,
idea.
Kyle. Absolutely.
So you're on Instagram and what other social media?
I'm on LinkedIn as well. On Facebook, I just have a Facebook page for my novel, and it's just
Mhm.
called The Box, the Book. And but yeah, and I have a TikTok account with Cathelina Duvert, but I'm not on it as much as I was in the summertime when I was heavily promoting the publication of my book. But I have it. It's there.
You know, social media is such a great tool, but
Hmm.
I still don't have a great clue on how to use it. I I'll
I
post
know.
stuff, but I'm just not that great at it. So I very rarely get on there anymore.
Yeah. It becomes a little I get overwhelmed with it though sometimes. At one point I was doing on a daily basis, I was doing Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and it just got too much for me. I was like, I can't do it all, So I that's why I just stick to Instagram and sometimes LinkedIn. But yeah.
Yeah, once I hit it rich, I'll have somebody do it for me.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking too.
Well, in your book, you said is on Amazon.
It is on Amazon and it's on barnesandnoble.com and bookshop.org.
I believe that you had a link in your profile that I will put in the description and along with your other links as well.
Yeah.
Kathy, this has been a great conversation. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kyle. I appreciate the space for it.
Anytime when that next one comes out, you got to come back on.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button. For my regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Till the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network